Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this video is going to be video 1 of 3 in a series looking at each Warlock spec in Midnight Beta, but from more of a, semi-in-depth talent discussion slash yap slash late feedback update kind of point of view. I want to make these videos because I do think we're getting, we are in late beta at this point, and I think unless you're one of a few specs or is in the complete toilet right now, you're not getting these massive talent changes anymore. I really don't think for most specs. You're gonna get tuning changes, maybe a couple little things added to certain abilities here and there, but nothing massive. I don't think Warlock is in the toilet. I think the capstones for Destro are a little rough, but besides that, I don't think we're really getting massive sweeping changes. But there are things I want to hit on in the tree interaction wise. Talk about some builds and just think about some experimental things. Because Sims aren't done, we don't really know, but with some changes that they made this last week to Echo of Sargeras and Shadowburn, it's very possible that it's worth playing Shadowburn in, single target and raid settings. We'll talk about all that today. Shameless plug, I think at this time, less than 1,000 subs away from 100K on the channel. It's probably right around there when this video goes live later on today. If you aren't subbed, please consider subbing. It'd mean the world to me. It'd be sick if we hit it this week. We can hit it whenever, man, honestly. I'd love to hit it sooner or later, but it's crazy to me in the first place, and I want to thank y'all for all support. Legit. So if you aren't subbed, to mean the world to me if you did, by the way. Let's get into it. So, first things first, I do want to briefly hit on talent builds for Destro and what I've been messing with a good bit. Now, honestly, some of these builds are probably a little cooked. I was playing with this build for a while for Hellcaller, and there really isn't a huge difference here between Hellcaller and Diabolist when it comes to these builds here, besides the fact that I'm swapping between Inferno and Chaos Incarnate for Diabolist versus Hellcaller. Hellcaller's picking up Conflagration of Chaos, Practice Chaos over these two. And there's a lot of weird talents interactions with Destro that make me consider and think about not playing this for Hellcaller, but playing this for Diabolist. And a lot of it starts up here in the actual Hellcaller tree. So this row is new here. We have Through the Fellvine, which increases bolt damage and rain of fire damage by 8. However, the effect is doubled when Malevolence is active. Malevolence being a 1-minute cooldown, it's your capstone for Hellcaller. And I mean, it's pretty simple to pick up on here. Minute cooldown, 2-minute cooldown being your Infernal, unless you're playing, Inferno. If you're playing Inferno, it's a minute and a half. Let me change this. It looks a little scuffed. I don't really know why, but it'll say 2 when I change to this. Why I can't change, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. So yeah, 2-minute cooldown and 1. So I mean, it makes sense. You want to Infernal with Malevolence, and then Malevolence by itself, and then sync them again every other minute, right? However, if you're playing Inferno, your Infernal becomes a minute and a half. And you really can't sync Malevolence and Infernal with it being a minute and a half and a minute until that 3-minute mark. It basically go like Infernal Malevolence on pull, then Malevolence at 1, Infernal at 1:30, Malevolence at 2, and then Infernal at 3. It's just weird. It's like the old playstyles we used to have in Shadowlands and stuff, with like old singularity timings, and it was just gross with old Infernal. Now, there could be a world that's worthwhile. Some fights in retesting, like Nexus King Salazar, have felt where you might want those varying damage profiles based on the profiles that fight once, but regardless, outside of playing Inferno for the CDR on Infernal, you get a 3% mastery increase, which is not nothing, right? Because you do indeed also path into Chaos Incarnate here, which gives you 70% of your master benefit always to Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadowburn, right? So that's nice in conjunction with 3% here, and if you're playing 2 up here from Practice Chaos at some point, maybe, who knows, it does add up for more passive damage overall. But Through the Fellvine makes it interesting. So I don't think it's likely worth holding your Infernal if it's a minute and a half if you're playing Inferno to that 2-minute mark if you're Hellcaller. Maybe it is in Sims, but I feel like if you're playing a minute and a half Infernal, you're probably going to want to throw it at a minute and a half. Minute and a half Infernal means you're getting Crashing Chaos every minute and a half, or Rain of Chaos, or you're playing it in M+, or for whatever reason playing this over Crashing Chaos. You get the Infernal benefit effects, but you're not able to sync your Malevolence with Through the Fellvine doubling bolt damage, which does stack with Crashing Chaos, with that minute and a half CD compared to minute. Now, when you're looking at Diabolist, though, it's fine, because you don't have Malevolence here. You just throw your Infernal every minute and a half, and you get Crashing Chaos. You're not syncing it with anything else, and it feels fine, right? And I think there's obviously a lot of variance and difference between those profiles, but it makes Destro actually really customizable for this upcoming raid tier. Obviously, it's under tune right now. It needs help. But you've got a lot of flexibility in like a strong, just straight up minute and a half profile with Diabolist, or a minute/2 minute profile with Hellcaller if you end up playing, these varying builds here, right? So that's definitely worth mentioning, and seeing where that goes. If you're gonna play if I was looking at playing a Hellcaller build in single target right now, for a while I had experimented with Cataclysm and Lake of Fire, and they actually are decent in single target. Lake's like I think 5% roughly, but it's if you don't pull the target out of it, if you're casting on cooldown and everything else, that's fine. Sometimes things move, so on and so forth. With the recent changes to Shadowburn, it makes things really interesting. Because they didn't really change Shadowburn per se, but they added Shadowburn to Embers of Nihilum, the capstone rank 3. Casting Chaos Bolt, Shadowburn, or Rain of Fire, launch an Ember at 50%, 50%, or 60% respectively, so Rain of Fire 60 effectiveness. However, it's a guaranteed Ember. It's not, oh, it might happen. It is guaranteed. When I hit Shadowburn, an Ember is getting launched, right? Shadowburn was not part of this until this week. And Destra's under team right now. Demo and AF are the flashy specs, and they're fun, don't get me wrong. But I think this interaction and things is flying under the radar and not been looked at a whole lot when it comes to like rating, because the focus of M plus or beta right now is more or less M plus. Testing's over for the rate, right? But the fact that whenever you Shadowburn, it launches an Ember 100%, right? I mean, Bolt does too, and Rain of Fire does as well. But like when you're in that 20% execute range with Shadowburn, you can hit it for free, and it costs 1 soul shard, and you're just spamming it over and over. You can launch 2 Echo of Sargeras effects for 2 shards at instant speed, comparatively to 1 Chaos Bolt that costs 2 shards and it has a cast time, right? I can hit Shadowburn, GCD, Shadowburn, and get 2 Echoes and 2 Shadowburn cast off, versus hitting Chaos Bolt with a cast time and 2 shard cost for 1 Echo. And that makes things really interesting, because you can build upon that even more by, for example, if you're playing, like, whether it's Hellcaller or Diabolist, right? Let's say you end up playing Diabolist here. I've seen some builds and talk of just fully pulling out of Soulfire and Overlord. I mean, this honestly, like, Overlord is sick. Old Soulfire was cool with Decimation, but realistically, it does feel clunky to play with in raid testing at times. If you're not watching the CD like a hawk, I mean, you're losing time on your Overlord and everything else. The Shard Gem feels okay, but honestly, man, like, I think a build like this, pulling out of Cataclysm and Lake of Fire and hopping over here into Shadowburn, Fiendish Cruelty, just hopping down here, grabbing all your modifiers, grabbing your Mastery modifier here, grabbing Incarnate for a big Mastery of 70% minimum, grabbing Inferno for that minute and a half Infernal, Conflagration of Chaos, Embers, Ruin, Devastation, and Improved Chaos Bolt. I think this build could very well be the best build for raiding heading into next year. The passive modifiers here, you're not worrying about Soulfire stuff. This is obviously beyond dead. I mean, Overlord's cool, but like when it's not spawning every so often like it does on retail currently, it's sort of like just, well, it is what it is. I think this build might be better. Now, the thing to point out about Shadowburn here is when it comes to Shadowburn's usage above 20% health, Fiendish Cruelty here gives Chaos Bolt, Conflagrate, or Incinerate a 10% chance to make your next cast of Shadowburn within half a minute, cost no soul shards, and be usable on any target regardless of health. However, Conflagration of Chaos affects Conflagrate and Shadowburn. However, this effect lasts 20 seconds, not 30, and it corresponds, like Conflagrate critting corresponds to buffing the next Conflagrate. Like for example, like if I Conflagrate here, the next, like, there's Conflagration of Chaos for Conflagrate. It's only buffing Conflagrate, not Conflagrate or Shadowburn. So Conflagrate buffs Conflagrate, Shadowburn buffs Shadowburn, and the effect lasts 20 seconds. You can have both active, I believe, at the same time, but the downside is that if you don't, have decent RNG and get, a second Shadowburn proc within that 20-second window of the first one proccing and you hitting it for free, you do lose out on the Conflagration of Chaos value above that 20% threshold. However, Conflagration guarantees basically your next Conflagrate is going to crit every time. Same with Shadowburn. So it does indeed increase that proc chance of Fiendish Cruelty, because it does affect Conflagrate. So it makes things interesting, both for Hellcaller and Diabolist, depending on the build you're playing, however you're looking at, your Infernal and Crushing Chaos windows, right? Now, adding more to that, when you hit that 20% threshold, you run into the sort of, like, I guess, issue of Crushing Chaos with your Infernal. I don't know why Shadowburn is not part of, well, I guess I sort of do, but I feel like Shadowburn should really be part of Crushing Chaos. And maybe we're in a world where we just can't add it at this point because you can just spam it for free below 20, well, for a shard below 20%, but I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. There's a lot of fights where I put my Infernal down with Crushing Chaos in execute range, and I want to hit Shadowburn a bunch at this point as well now to proc Embers every time and to hit my execute button, but I'm forced to sit there and cast 8 Chaos Bolts instead because I have Crushing Chaos out. It just feels terrible. Like, it feels clunky. Obviously, it's sort of worth it damage-wise, I guess. So I figure we just sort of jump into this. This dummy is in execute range. I waited for it to get low. I'm just going to throw my Infernal. We're playing Dabless with the Shadowburn build here and stuff we're talking about with Minute and a Half Infernal, Chaos Incarnate, Master modifiers, no Soulfire stuff, and just see what the damage breakdown looks like, right? So let's say we're going to precast and Incinerate, Immolate on pull, basically, Infernal, Trinket, Conflagrate, and begin launching Chaos Bolts. Pet shouldn't be on passive. Let's put him there. There we go. It's very cool. Now, obviously, Crashing Chaos has 8 stacks here. We got to dump all 8 of these. I'm going to hit Shadowburn procs if they proc for free, but besides that, we're just going to roll with Chaos Bolts. Now, it does feel weird, because like I said, I'm playing this talent, Shadowburn, that I want to hit in execute range, but I can't really because it's not being buffed by Crashing Chaos. Now, if I launch this bolt here, it hits for roughly... I couldn't even see 111k there. I couldn't really even tell. It's just flashing, whatever. I hit Shadowburn there for free Shadowburn. Conflagrate again. This is the last bolt being covered by Crushing Chaos. It hits for 87k, right? This Shadowburn hit for 77k. The Shadowburn hits for almost the same amount. Look, Shadowburn, Ember, Shadowburn, Ember, Shadowburn, Ember, Shadowburn, Ember. Those beams are guaranteed to come down with every single Shadowburn. And watch my buffs here as well. Like, there's Conflagration of Chaos from... Shadowburn, there's Conflagration Chaos from just Conflagrate. Watch, Shadowburn. You never drop the effect. Even if, like, the Shadowburn that you're casting, like, you know, is gaining the benefit or whatever, it also reapplies another stack or whatever, or another, like, you know, buff for Shadowburn or Conflagrate. The effect is always active. And seeing as how I have an Infernal every minute and a half, when I'm between, like, damage here or spamming Shadowburn, look at the breakdown here. Like, what's going on? Like, we are in a hard execute here, right? Chaos Bolt is doing about half the damage Shadowburn did. Now, once again, we're back around to Infernal, so I'll throw Infernal here. You can see Chaos Bolt's at 844k to 1.6. So I'll Trinket, hit Shadowburn if it procs here, whatever. Besides that, just keep dumping Chaos Bolts here, and we'll see where it is when we land, because we're not casting any straight up Shadowburns here. But the damage Shadowburn puts out is wild, and that's not factoring in the damage you also get from the extra Echoes cast when you're spending 1 shard for an Echo proc, basically, versus 2 through a Chaos Bolt. So it's pretty crazy. We have 1 more stack of Chaos to dump here, so we're going to dump this about now. Launch the Bolt. Here we go, and it's pretty even, 1.7 to 1.8 for free procs, but watch this. So, Shadowburn, 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 Shadowburn. And look at Echo Sargeras climbing. Look at it climbing. Shadowburn, 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 Conflagrate, Shadowburn. I mean, like, I think there could be a world where, depending on a fight's breakdown and how everything is, there might even be a world where we just don't even play Crashing Chaos. If Reign of Chaos and Crashing Chaos are close enough, there could be a world where you just straight up play Reign of Chaos instead. Right? And, like, so if you're getting an Infernal in that last 20%, which, I mean, you likely will on a boss, depending where you're at, or if you can get good Shadowburn value, you just say, forget Crushing Chaos. I don't want to take time off to cast 8 Chaos Bolts, so I can just spam Shadowburn a bunch and proc a bunch of Echoes of Sargeras. I just want to play Reign of Chaos, which can proc more Infernals and give me more shard gen for more Shadowburn effects, right? So I think, like, Destro's flying under the radar a lot when it comes to this stuff. Like, these changes were made recently to Echo Sargeras, giving it Shadowburn, you know, procs this week or whatever. But I mean, Demo's wild right now. It's overtuned. It's going to get knocked down a little bit this week. AF is very fun right now as well, but I think people are undervaluing Destro when it comes to raid stuff, as far as, like, what it does rotational, or as far as what the profile can do. Now, in general, the damage is undertuned. It needs a lot. It needs massive buffs. But this interaction and this synergy, I think, is definitely being slept on. And there is a lot coming up in this raid tier. There are so many good fights this raid tier where Destro is good. You can get a lot of good cleave on Chimeras. I mean, this is like whatever, sort of single target, like Fallen King Salvador, great Destro fight. 2-target fight, great Destro fight. 3 targets, great Destro fight. This is like a good cleave fight too. This is a great Destro fight. Midnight Falls looks to be good too. Now, I'm not saying it's like the end all be all, you play Destro everywhere, but, like, it seems like there's a lot of potential here that we should not be, you know, sleeping on. but it does need buff still. It's still way worse than Demon F in single target, but regardless, there's that. Let's reset this and give one attempt here with Reign of Chaos and just, we'll just forego casting Chaos Bolt entirely in this window here. This thing's low. I just want to see how it feels with Reign of Chaos. Let's just give it a shot. So we're going to open up here, Incinerate, Immolate, Infernal, Trinket, why not Conflagrate, Shadowburn, 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 Shadowburn. There's one Infernal procs. We Shadowburn again. Building some shards here. Only one Infernal. Maybe we'll get a second one. Who knows? Maybe, possibly. Their second Infernal. Shadowburn. Shadowburn. Third Infernal. Shadowburn. Immolate fell. It's okay. Shadowburn. Shadowburn. Oh, Shadowburn. 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 We got 3 Infernals. I feel like we actually low rolled a good bit there, honestly, based on those proc chances. But regardless, though, I mean, the breakdown here, like, I mean, look at it. It's literally Shadowburn and Echo of Sargeras. And Shadowburn is hitting for about the same damage as a Chaos Bolt does. 80k comparatively to, like, you know, 80k for a bolt comparatively like 70k for a Shadowburn. There's even 82k there, right? Now, obviously, the bolts are being buffed by Crushing Chaos. Are going to hit for more a little bit, but I think, like, when it all leverages out and averages out, like, I mean, this build in general could be really good in single target when it comes to, like, having to execute burn phase on it. So we'll do one more cycle here because Infernal's almost up. But whether you're playing Diabolist or Hellcaller here, like, the Shadowburn implications are they're the same for both. You can play the same build in both of them, essentially, right? And the fact that you can also just jump around and do 360 no-scopes at the same time without having to worry about standing still and casting bolts, pretty cool. Built some shards here for this Reign of Chaos window. Second, here we go. Good enough. Infernal, Trinket, Shadowburn, 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 Shadowburn. Waiting for an Infernal. It might proc. Who knows? Maybe we get one. Maybe we don't. It's actually just crazy seeing 6 Echo procs back to back, though, there. Maybe we'll get an Infernal. This is why you don't play Reign of Chaos. This is why you don't play Reign of Chaos. Maybe we'll get an Infernal. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe we'll get one. It's going to close in 3 seconds. Are we going to get one? Nah, it's just a cool little vibe talent. We're just vibe talented nowadays. The point being, I mean, you can high roll it. You can low roll it, whatever. But what I'm trying to drive home here is Shadowburn looks really good. But I think there might be a world you want to add this to Crashing Chaos. It wouldn't have any relevance, I mean, unless it procs, you know, like through Fiendish Cruelty on targets above 20% health. But when you're in that threshold and it feels good and rewarding to hit Shadowburn a bunch, but you're forced to cast 8 slow Chaos Bolts instead, it feels clunky. And Death's Capstones feel clunky enough. It would give a bit more leeway in things. We're already not playing half our Capstones, it feels like, anyways at this point. And they're all, I mean, every Capstone we're playing here is a passive. Like, passive, passive, passive. They're all passives. Like, and they literally all buff spells. Crit increase, damage cast time reduction, mastery CDR, mastery, passive crit, shards. There's no active talent here in general. It's sort of weird, but I mean, I guess, well, it sort of is what it is. Now, briefly, when it comes to, like, M+ and stuff, I think the jury's still out on what build is, like, looking to be, like, the best in a sense. There are builds, there is the Chaos Bolt Diabolist, like, single target build running around that would basically cast Chaos Bolts in, like, maybe not like mass AoE, but a good bit of AoE is still just Chaos Bolt based, and your Echoes of Embers of Nihilum would proc and just do all your AoE damage passively. That build was pretty good. They cut the effectiveness of Embers in half like 2 weeks ago, right? So I mean, it's not as strong. It's probably still there and relevant in a certain extent, or to a certain extent. I mean, I have a build like this saved. I don't know if it's even like really the build people are playing now. It's been here for a while, but it's like minute and a half Infernal. It's playing like, oh, this is Ire and Rapidity. I don't know if you'd even play this. You probably would, but I don't know the threshold of like what you would do. I don't know the threshold of where Rain of Fire is worthwhile with Chaos Bolt build now comparatively to before with 100% effectiveness versus 50 on this and other thresholds as well. I could see a world where you play Shadowburn Conflagration of Chaos builds in here too, possibly it ends up being worthwhile, but I do think Destro has that strong AoE profile still that you've seen a lot in S3 of War Within, even previous seasons too, right? Where that mass AoE profile. They buffed Wither and Black and Soul recently. Malevolence is still a good minute cooldown. You can play a minute and a half Infernal if you want in Hellcaller. I think it's probably still better playing like 2 and 1, but whatever, is what it is. But with this build, you can get access to, I mean, Flashpoint, Fire and Brimstone. Roaring Blaze basically spreads and maintains your wither effects, so we're not even playing CDF anymore. This has been fixed. It works again now. There could be some things you pull out of, maybe like you don't want Fire and Brimstone, you grab like Practice Chaos instead, something like that, but maybe even like EP somewhere. But I mean, honestly, like, I don't think Destro's core AoE rotation and how it feels M+, it's not really changing very much. You've got your Infernal, Malevolence, Cataclysm, Wither, whatever. If you're playing Diabolist, I mean, we've played the build a bit. You have these bolts you can cast that do like a bit of passive AoE damage from Echoes. Both builds do, but I mean, like, the Chaos Bolt build has more focused damage through Echoes of Sargeras. Also, you're playing Diabolist, you have the Demonic Oculi you're flinging whenever you cast Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire. Previously, it was bugged and it wouldn't be flung unless you actually cast Chaos Bolt, but now it's both. So, I mean, I don't know the ratio of like where you want to cast Rain with this build versus Chaos Bolt, but I mean, in the end, like, Soul Harvester Demo's better than Soul Harvester Af is better than Diabolist Demo's better than honestly Hellcaller Ass probably better, and then you have Destro at the bottom. So I think for a lot of reasons it hasn't really been looked into because of it just being subpar and undertuned. But when I play at Destro and M+, like, you need significant single target buffs. But we'll see where it goes. I would expect some buffs to probably Immolate, or probably like Incinerate, Conflagrate, Chaos Bolt, maybe even Shadowburn this week coming up. But like I said, I think the big thing here that people are sleeping on a lot, myself included until I looked into it more, is just like Shadowburn in execute range with Conflagration of Chaos, and just foregoing these weird talents are just like not really what or where you want to be. This build might end up being worthwhile. And baseline burns 13-3, baseline bolts like 24 or whatever, but this thing always crits. If this thing crits, it's doing 26,000, and guess what? It always crits with Conflagration of Chaos. I mean, like, they are very, very close. You obviously have modifiers from Crushing Chaos here, which is increasing bolt damage, you know. But point being, man, like, I think we should look more at the Shadowburn build, at least keep it in mind, and see where it goes in the next few weeks with tuning. And obviously, like, this Inferno stuff with Hellcaller versus Diabolist is weird. I wouldn't mind them like swapping places with these, like putting Incarnate here, this here, and this here. I think it makes more sense because it feels like you're paying a toll if you want this for Hellcaller, like by taking Inferno to get to this, where I don't really want it Infernal in a minute and a half. But for Diabolist, I def do. But I want this regardless of the spec. So if we can swap these around, that'd be really cool. But that's more or less it. Obviously, if there's like some bigger capstone changes that could come in, I mean, great. But I don't think we're at that point. I think we're past that point when, like, they'd be doing that. I don't think you're going to see Soulfire Decimation back. I don't think they're pulling Rift out of here and making it a whole new row at this point. I think capstone-wise, what you see is what you get. Maybe they move a couple things around, like swapping these or adding Shadowburn to Conflagration or to Crushing Chaos and stuff. But in the end, that's that. Trying to keep these videos a little short. We're going to cut it a little early here. But thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. We'll have the Demo and AF videos of this coming up in a couple days as well. Might give it a day and see if we get a beta build later on today or tomorrow. But that's that. If you're not subbed, sub to the channel. It means the world to me. We're almost at 100K. I don't know how, but we are. That's insane. I appreciate you guys, man. Seriously. So I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for watching. See you later. Peace.